Now, issues of religious intolerance and the plight of human rights defenders dominated this year's Human Rights Council meeting at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. Human rights groups Haki Africa received a special invitation to participate in the event, where they made contribution on the status of human rights activism in Kenya. We will now link up with the Executive Director of Haki Africa, Hussein Khalid, to speak to us about some of the resolutions that were made in the conference. Hussein Khalid, many thanks for joining us on our news program. And quickly, let's get into it. What were some of the highlights of this event?
Thank you so much for having me and for this opportunity to speak about the Human Rights Council meeting that we got an opportunity to attend. It was a very big meeting. As you can imagine, we had representatives from all over the world, and basically we were discussing matters related to religious freedom and rule of law. And the message is that for us to have global peace, for us to have global security, it's paramount for us to ensure that there is cohesion, there is understanding between different religions in the world. So the meeting was very, very clear that for us to ensure that security prevails within our borders, within our countries, we have to use every avenue available to us to promote inter-religious dialogue for purposes of ensuring religious cohesion and understanding at the same time.
Currently, where would you put the world? Are we heading into the right direction when it comes to religious tolerance and cohesion, of course?
I think if we look across the world currently, we can see that there's a lot of misunderstandings on religious issues. In many parts of the world, we are seeing different faiths getting into conflicts, wars and things like that. But we cannot all say that hope is lost. I think the way the United Nations and state parties of the United Nations are doing some wonderful work to try and address the many issues that are actually prevailing around religious freedom. And we also have civil society organizations, the corporate sector, and everyone who is working together to try and ensure that we attain peace in this world. So I would say currently it might appear as if there are many conflicts, religious conflicts across the world, but we know for a fact that many people are working behind the scenes, particularly religious leaders and state parties, to address the conflicts that are currently being seen everywhere in the world. So the future looks bright, but we need to work extra hard to ensure that we attain the peace that we are all yearning for.
Now, Hussein, getting back into the country, Haki Africa is one of the most vocal human rights groups, and we've had you at loggerheads with the government. You've had your accounts frozen and unfrozen and quite a number of times. Where does that place Haki Africa right now?
I think the experience of Haki Africa is what many other civil society groups and institutions are going through across the world. Even the experience of Kenyan government, particularly in addressing civil society issues, is not something new to Kenya alone. This is happening across the world. We are in a process where we are trying to find our way out. And for particularly a country like Kenya, the war against terrorism is not something that we have been used to for very long. It's something new to us. His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta lamented about this some time back and asked the international community to assist. For example, the case of Haki Africa, the freezing and unfreezing of the accounts, it's an issue that was shrouded with a lot of misunderstanding, half-truths here and there, and now we are able to actually confirm that we are all working towards the attainment of the same goal. So we are now back in good books. We are working with government authorities. We are working with state parties to ensure that we actually understand what is happening and work together to promote peace. So civil society is actually supposed to complement the work of the government. Government should not see or view civil society as an entity that is working against it. So when we are able to work together, then we are able to attain the peace that our people are really yearning for. And we believe that we are in the right cause at this point in time. Last year we made some we had some issues that we've been able to resolve now, and we believe that in the coming few years we should be able to actually achieve our goal both as civil society and as government.
Hussein, the issue of radicalization, among the issues or the reasons that were given to freeze and unfreeze your account or your accounts, and why Haki Africa was targeted is because it was accused of supporting terror and radicalization. But what is the contribution of the civil society in the country, specifically your group, when it comes to help fighting radicalization among the youth?
Thank you very much. I think the role of civil society, Haki Africa, and many other groups on the ground is to ensure that human rights are promoted and protected. You see, it's not Haki Africa that wrote the constitution and gave it to Kenyans. It's something that all Kenyans actually voted for. And in August 2010, we promulgated the new constitution that actually has the Bill of Rights as the biggest chapter in that constitution. This basically means that if we are truly to deliver on that constitution, we all have to play our part. And what Haki Africa does is actually play that part of promoting and protecting the rights that are enshrined in the constitution. Again, the constitution that all Kenyans supported for. So when we speak up against the rights of suspects, when we speak up against, not against, for the rights of suspects, when we speak up for the rights of victims, when we speak up for the rights of individuals and communities, we are not saying that out of our own making, but we are actually asking that the constitution that we all support and agree to should actually be respected. So it's a misunderstanding in most cases where people feel that when you speak for the rights of arrested persons, which is actually in the Constitution of Kenya itself, they tend to imagine that you're actually defending criminals or you are defending suspects. And that is not the case. What we are saying is that any society that treats the vulnerable, that treats the weak, that treats the poor in a bad manner is a society that actually needs to relook at its values and principles. And these are the issues that we actually raise in terms of addressing human rights, not just of the rich, the poor, and those who are on the right track, but also of those who are weak and vulnerable. And that is our work as human rights organizations. And Kenya today has one of the strongest civil societies in Africa. And what we need to do is actually support their growth, to support their work, so that we can all have a society that is a just society.
The issue of radicalization and the war on terror, was it part of the conference in Geneva? And if so, what are some of the resolutions that came out regarding the same?
Yes, the war against terror and radicalization and extremism currently is an issue that features in all global meetings. You actually can't go to any forum, wherever it is, without these issues coming to the fore. So when I attended the Human Rights Council meeting and we were speaking about religious freedom and tolerance and unity amongst different faiths, we actually discussed some of these concerns. And the concern was that the war against terror is actually used to justify human rights violations across the world. And being a recognized institution, a human rights institution that is actually working at the grassroots, it was an opportunity for us to also explain or to make our input from the Kenyan perspective on how we can actually use religious freedom to guarantee people their rights. So at the Human Rights Council meeting, we actually spoke about a project that was being supported by the Canadian High Commission here in Kenya to promote dialogue between persons of different faiths. In the last couple of months, we've been bringing people from the Hindu community, from the Muslim community, from the Christian community to actually sit down and address the small differences that actually play themselves so hugely in a manner that causes a misunderstanding. So we were able to discuss about this and explain to the people how we've managed to promote tolerance in Mombasa, in Kenya, in order for us to move forward as a country, as one nation.
Now, Hussein, the war against the terror and the violation of human rights, which you say is justified to do the latter, where do we draw the line?
And that thing will not help you. You will not cause a problem and you're not sorting it out.
So, come again?
The war on terror, as you have said, is perceived to to ensure that human rights violations are breached or human rights are breached? Where do we draw the line on, yes, we are fighting terror, but again, we are not undermining human rights in the world?
Yes, that's a very, very good question. And I think it's an issue that many countries are trying to answer at the moment and to address specifically. Recently, the United Nations General Ban Ki-moon issued guidelines on respecting human rights in the fight against terror. We know that it's not an easy task for security authorities and for others to ensure security at the same time as protect and promote human rights. But nevertheless, that must be the way in which we carry out the fight against terrorism. Fight against terrorism should not turn us also into terrorists, because the moment we employ the same strategies of harassment, of torture, of killings,